Welcome to Ackerman Recap. At the end of the year, koi fish reproduce in large numbers, shining brightly beneath the river's surface. However, suddenly, they disappear without leaving any trace. The main culprit is this creature, a gigantic four-legged creature, larger than even a ship. A few days later, an old man who was fishing was extremely startled as a massive creature gradually emerged. Shortly after, the police and rescue teams arrived to investigate the incident. The old man had disappeared, and the large ship had been twisted. This reporter was broadcasting the scene live when the monster jumped out behind him. It was a giant alligator, and the strongest primitive man was tightly gripping its neck. The reporter couldn't believe his eyes. The giant alligator thrashed around continuously, but Pickle tightened his grip even more. After a while of struggling to break free from the powerful primitive man's grasp, the alligator became motionless. Compared to the size of the dinosaurs that Pickle had battled before, this giant alligator was less than half their size. Pickle dragged the alligator into a water drain. Due to its enormous body, it got stuck in the drain's opening. The onlookers couldn't believe what they were witnessing. They were incredibly astonished by Pickle's incredible strength. His traction is terrible. Today, he had quite a feast prepared for himself. The information about the recent incident was immediately posted online. Musashi was watching it when he abruptly chopped the TV in half. "What on earth are you doing, Musashi?" Tokugawa exclaimed, taken aback. He explained to the samurai that there was no one inside that TV. They were merely replaying the events through a camera. Listening to Toku's explanation that the person on TV was the primitive man Pickle, who had killed many dinosaurs, Musashi initially found it hard to believe. However, he couldn't doubt what Toku was saying and express his desire to meet this primitive man. Motobi had also learned of this news and wanted to protect the primitive man as well. Following Dr. Payne's instructions, the police summoned a team of nearly 100 people along with 5 tons of chloroform, a sedative. The officers poured the sedative into the sewer systems surrounding the area where Pickle had appeared, and the strongest warrior of the Cretaceous period was quickly found. He was then taken to a laboratory. "He stinks," Dr. Payne's assistant remarked. "A homeless person of that size, you'd think he'd smell like roses." Dr. Payne objected. Toku and Musashi had arrived by this point. The swordsman asked if this man was famous. Toku replied that he was indeed famous, with some even claiming him to be the strongest living being. Upon hearing this, Musashi raised his hand and used the palm of his hand to strike Pickle in the face. However, it wasn't that simple. It was a slashing blow, and Pickle woke up from his slumber. Musashi was astonished at the thickness of Pickle's neck, as his sword couldn't cut through it. In the past, Musashi could easily bisect 8 bodies, 6 pillars, and 12 hands with a single strike. During that era, there was nothing he couldn't cut through, but in the modern age, Yujiro managed to block his strike, and this primitive man couldn't be cut. In a daze, Pickle clearly knew who had just slashed him, and he stared intently at Musashi, leaving the 2 old men trembling with fear. The fierce Pickle rushed forward only to get a slash right across his mouth. However, Pickle remained unharmed and charged again, this time with a series of cuts appearing all over his body. Despite using all his might for those slashes, the legendary swordsman still could not take Pickle down. The primitive man recalled his own era, where there was a creature, though small, that was incredibly fast and equipped with sharp iron-like claws. Those claws had caused Pickle a lot of trouble. It was the Deinonychus, a formidable adversary much like the legendary swordsman himself. Dr. Payne was objecting to Toku's decision. He did not want these 2 treasures of humanity to be pitted against each other and yelled loudly, "Open your damn eyes!" Tokugawa remained calm, believing that they were fortunate to witness a battle between a great swordsman and a powerful primitive man. He would not forgive anyone who dared to obstruct his dream. Just as he finished speaking, Dr. Payne pulled out a gun and threatened everyone to abandon this fight and leave together. While he was talking, he felt his hand break, followed by a slash on his neck and then a series of cuts all over his body. Musashi snatched the gun and tested it. "This thing is much more powerful and easier to use than shuriken," Musashi exclaimed in surprise. The legendary swordsman declared that no one was allowed to interfere in this battle. A huge raging volcano suddenly appears in front of Pickle. An old enemy who has troubled him in the past appears. Pickle charged forward with great force. Musashi easily evaded and countered with a cut to Pickle's leg. The swordsman was deeply surprised by the incredibly tough flesh and bones, as his strike only left a scratch. Pickle went into a frenzy and attacked relentlessly. Musashi swung his sword with all his might once more, hoping to cut through that thick layer of skin, but Pickle just screamed in pain. This adversary was unlike any Musashi had ever faced. His sword couldn't overcome Pickle's solid skin, and he couldn't figure out how to win. The more he thought, the more he felt a burning desire for wealth, fame, and admiration arising within him. Musashi praised the primitive man, acknowledging his overwhelming strength, which surpassed perfection. Honor, glorious deeds, Pickle had it all. Musashi, consumed by envy for his opponent, decided that he would annihilate everything about Pickle. However, he was surprised to find that his opponent also sought to defeat him. This technique had brought down countless giant dinosaurs, including the T-Rex and the three-horned dinosaur, not to mention the kung fu master Retsukayo. The legendary samurai contemplated how to confront this move, unsure whether to evade or block it due to its incredible speed. He decided to face Pickle head-on, and they clasped hands. One, a primitive man who had used those hands to feast on numerous dinosaurs, the other, a samurai with an incredibly powerful grip. Who would emerge victorious? They both struggled to push each other back. In a momentary lapse of concentration, Musashi seized the opportunity to kick the wall hard and send Pickle crashing to the ground. Pickle's tremendous thrust created a dent more than 30 cm thick in the wall. Pickle's muscle layer was indeed impressive, providing complete protection for his bones and internal organs. In order to defeat him, Musashi wanted to use a real sword. Just as he finished speaking, Pickle pushed upward, sending Musashi flying up to the ceiling. Musashi remained determined to settle the fight with a real sword. Dr. Payne rushed in to intervene, emphasizing that Pickle was a priceless treasure for humanity, a miracle, and a priceless spiritual child to him. Musashi pushed Dr. Payne aside, considering the Nobel laureate in front of him as someone ignorant who didn't understand what he was saying. In this situation, the Nobel laureate couldn't find an appropriate explanation. The video has come to an end. Please leave your comments in the comments section, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button to stay updated with the latest videos from me. For now, goodbye and see you again, everyone.